The helm, if we look down at the water, we can actually see the rudder dragging through the water. And I got to say right now, it's easy to stand here in a motorboat. Every once in a while we get a little spray, but not much, and be very critical. But you can see right there, if Alan could flatten the boat out a little bit more, flatten the main out a little bit more, that helm might go a little bit neutral.
Has it got about 4 or 5 degrees of helm there?
Yeah, I think 4 or 5 degrees or so, maybe on that. Ideally, it would be pretty darn neutral. Now, having said all that, it's blown pretty good, so he's doing a nice job of keeping the boat pretty darn flat. But the things that I would suggest we change, we can see the outhaul. He has a little bit of fullness down low, you know, so we could go with the outhaul a little bit tighter. We can see the vang is actually loose. We can see the vang banging around. And I'd probably go with a little bit more leeward sheet on the jib because we can see how full the jib is down low. So we'll stop now and we'll ask Alan to make those changes and see if it helps. Hey, Alan, can you get your, see how the outhaul is pretty loose and the bottom of the main is really full? Can you pull that out a little tighter? Yeah, quite a bit if you can in this breezy stuff. Okay. There we go, that looks good. And maybe a little bit more leeward sheet on the jib, a little bit more leeward sheet on the jib and a little bit less weather sheet. Right now the jib's really fat, you know, so there you go. Now pull on the leeward sheet a little more. There you go, a little bit more on the leeward.
You're going too fast now, Greg.
I know. Alan, maybe a little bit more leeward sheet on the jib, just a little bit. There you go. And now a little bit more vang. Yeah, there you go. That looks good. Okay, now Alan has made some changes here. And I think if anything, the breeze is up a little bit more. The main's a little flatter. He's got some vang on. We can see the bend in the boom now. The boom is off center line a little bit more, and the main's a little flatter. And I think we got a little bit more of a puff here now. And I think if he wanted to just look at how much, oh, that's looking good right there. He's flat, just a wee bit of helm. And right there, that's looking good. That looks a lot better. Does it feel a little lighter on the helm? Yeah. And in the, Alan, in the puffs, you could actually, in this flat water, let the boat carve up into the wind a little bit, and then maybe trim the main end to follow if the boat starts to die a little bit. But right there, that looks perfect. That looks really good. So now we can see this puff coming. In about 10 seconds or so, he's going to sail into a pretty good puff. And ideally, ease the main a little bit. There, he's doing a nice job keeping the boat flat. Maybe ease the main just a little bit. Here it comes. 3, 2, 1. There it is. Okay, maybe 3, 2, 1. There it is. Actually did a really nice, there it is a puff, and he's handling it just fine. That looks really good.
He eased the main, didn't he?
Yep, eased the main a little bit, but the boat's staying nice and flat. So that's good. And we can see now from here how much flatter the jib is. And what happened there is we just had a little bit too much weather sheet, and the jib was a little bit too deep. Alan, that looked great. Right, and he looks pretty darn good. We're going to watch how he's going upwind here. Now, first thing I want to comment on maybe is, first he's doing a great job of keeping the boat flat, which is really important, so that looks good. We can see a lot of belly in the bottom of the main, and actually they're getting the outhaul tight now. Looks like the outhaul slipped off. But we can see how having the outhaul eased makes the bottom of the main really deep. We can also see when the Cunningham is eased how the draft moves pretty far back in the main. We could see here maybe a little bit more Cunningham would be helpful for Dave, as that would make the lower leach become a little straighter. And we could probably look at this in a little more detail. But a little more Cunningham, a good bit more outhaul, and he would go even faster. But what he's doing really well here is keeping the boat flat with a neutral helm. I think the jib looks pretty darn good. Maybe he could shoot the jib a little bit tighter because we can see it looks pretty full. but I think his weather sheet looks pretty nice. But I think, again, with the main of more outhaul, more Cunningham, and then more Vang, and it would flatten out real nice. Okay, we're watching Jake here, and Jake's looking good. He's doing a really nice job of keeping the boat flat. He's got a lot of Vang on, and he's got 3 people, and you know, in this little bit lighter stuff right here, he might be able to ease the Vang off and then trim the main sheet in a little bit tighter. And again, we can see the, and I apologize again for being critical here, but again, we can see what happens when the outhaul is eased off. We can see how the bottom of the main looks pretty darn deep. So, what I might suggest here for Jake is just a little more outhaul and a little bit less Vang and more main sheet trim. And then the boom would come in closer to center line, and he'd still have the top of the main looking about the same. So it would just give him a little bit more power and a little bit more pointing ability. But I think his Cunningham tension, we can see the wrinkles in the lower half of the main, looks really good.
How about the twist?
And the twist looks pretty good. Dave was just asking about the twist. I think the twist looks pretty good. It's certainly not too little. And I guess, again, with a little bit less Vang and a little bit more main sheet tension, he'd probably be even a little bit better off. But he's moving well, and everything else we just said aside, what he's doing really well is the boat's flat and the helm is completely neutral. And we've been talking about the flat wake and all that stuff. That's just exactly what we want to see there, and that looks nice. And if we slide down to leeward here and look at the jib, there we go. The jib is perfect. We can see the clews over the center of the seat. The bottom of the jib is nice, and it's got shape, but it's not really fat and baggy. We can see the top batten is just about parallel to the center line, and he looks really good. And frankly, he's going very fast right here. So again, you know, there's a lot of ways to get the job done, but what Jake is doing really well is keeping the boat flat. Now we can see in this light stuff here, maybe a little bit of ease on the jib sheet, and a little bit, and quite a bit of ease on the Vang, a little more main sheet trim, and he'd be powered up even a little bit more. But he's in, if he's not second, he's going to be darn close to it. What's that? I'm sorry? Yeah. Hey, Jake. Jake, you know what you might try in this lighter stuff is ease the Vang off a little bit, and ease the Vang off a little bit in this lighter stuff, and then trim the main sheet on a little bit tighter. There you go. Trim the main in a little bit more. There you go. And maybe since the wind's gotten lighter, ease the jib sheet out just a ½ an inch. Yeah, that's it. There we go. That looks good. Now we see a difference where the boom's a lot closer to center line, and the main still looks very similar to what he had just a second ago. And all we're going to get here now is a little bit more pointing ability because the boom's closer, and it's going to give him a little bit more range. That is because he can play the main sheet a little bit more and get a little bit more range. So now we can see the top's twisted open. He can trim the sheet a little bit harder again and go even higher. Now he's a good solid, if not second, like I say, third. He's looking good.